One-pot dinners are unbelievable. They are some of the best dinners you can make on a busy week. Plus, you don't have to worry about cleaning like 100 dishes in the end because one-pot meals are so low mess. They come together in just one pot on the stove, and you're getting the best of both worlds today. You're not just getting one-pot meals, but these one-pot meals also come together in only about 20 minutes or less. So get excited. Let's get to my kitchen and let's get started. To kick us off today, we are making this one-pot hamburger helper, but this is not your average, boring, kind of like hamburger helper recipe. This recipe is extraordinary. So add a pound of ground beef to a pot on the stove, break that ground beef up, and cook it through. Now that it's cooked through, add in about a tablespoon of yellow mustard and a tablespoon of ketchup. Don't worry, they're not going to overpower this dish. For the seasonings, I'm adding in a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, then a teaspoon of paprika and a teaspoon of oregano and salt, then a half a teaspoon of pepper. This is really flavorful, I promise. After you add all of your seasonings in there, you're going to add in a cup and a half of uncooked elbow pasta. Just toss that pasta right in there. This dinner can't get any easier than this. Now I'm adding in 3.5 cups of chicken broth. Give this a really good stir. Scrape all those flavorful bits off the bottom of the pot. Then you're going to put a lid on top and let this simmer, stirring occasionally for about 12 minutes or until the pasta is tender. Now, once the pasta is tender, add in a half a cup of sour cream and 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese. You want to make sure you have your heat on low or basically off at this point, just so the sour cream doesn't separate. Here's what dinner looks like for Monday night. This is so incredibly delicious. My little ones had bowls and bowls of it. So did my husband and I. This dinner is not just perfect for little ones, it's also perfect for adults. So you get the best of both worlds with this one. It is so incredibly good. Now we're making this taco skillet for Tuesday night's dinner, and this one is for all of my meatless meal friends. This one is a meatless meal. To a pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil. Once your oil's hot, add in a diced yellow bell pepper and a diced yellow onion. Let these veggies saute for only about 2 minutes. Next, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Garlic burns so easily. It burns a lot quicker than other veggies, so just let it cook in there with those veggies for about 15 seconds. Now add in 1 cup of uncooked quinoa. Quinoa is super affordable. Also, it's high in protein and different nutrients. Then add in a 15-ounce can of drained and rinsed black beans, and then a 15-ounce can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. Next, a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies. Then add in your 2 cups of veggie broth or water. Also, if you want to add ingredients or subtract ingredients to this dish, you certainly can. I added in a cup of frozen corn, and then for the seasonings, add in a tablespoon of taco seasoning, half a teaspoon of oregano, and a half a teaspoon of salt. You are going to stir this super duper well. Let this simmer covered for about 15 minutes or until the quinoa is tender. After your quinoa is tender, you are going to add in 1/4 cup of fresh chopped cilantro. The reason why we're adding the cilantro in at the end, not the beginning, is to retain the integrity of its flavor. It will just be super flavorful and the color will be a lot brighter if you add it in at the end. Then add in 1 cup of Mexican style cheese if you're a cheese fan. If you're not a cheese fan, of course you don't have to add it in, but let the cheese melt and then you could serve it up. This is absolutely delicious. One of my favorite meatless meals. Quinoa is such a great meat substitute. Like I said, it's affordable, also high in protein and so many different nutrients. Now we're getting started on this teriyaki chicken and rice, and whoa, this one is good. I'm starting out by shredding my 3 large carrots, and I'm dicing a red bell pepper. Red bell peppers are considered to be the sweetest bell pepper, so it's really going to work great for this dish. Over to my Dutch oven on my stove, or you could use a large pot. Add in a tablespoon of olive oil, and once your oil's hot, add in your pound of cubed chicken breast. Season the chicken with a dash of salt and pepper, and let it cook for a couple minutes on each side. Your chicken doesn't need to be completely cooked through at this point. Now add in a tablespoon of minced garlic and a half a tablespoon of minced ginger. The ginger is really going to amp up this recipe. Let that cook for about 15 seconds. Now add in your shredded carrots and your bell pepper. After that, add in a cup of frozen peas and then 2.5 cups of chicken broth. After that, add in a cup of uncooked white rice, or you could use jasmine rice. Then 1/3 cup of low sodium soy sauce and 1/4 cup of honey. For this recipe, you could of course add veggies. You could take veggies away. You could really make it your own. You could make it with beef if you'd like, but give this a good stir and let this simmer covered for about 18 minutes or until your rice is nice and fluffy. Then you could I say this dinner is good, I am not joking. This is so incredibly delicious. It is so flavorsome. Also, this makes for great meal prepping, so if you want to meal prep it for lunches for the week or for dinners, you certainly could do that. We also sprinkle the top of ours with sesame seeds. It's so delicious. Now we're making my favorite sun-dried tomato tortellini, so to a pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil. Once it's hot, go ahead and add in a pound of cubed chicken breast. Season the chicken with a dash of pepper and salt and let the chicken cook for a few minutes. It doesn't need to be completely cooked through. You just kind of want it to get a little brown on the outside for added flavor. Now we're making a cornstarch slurry, so in this little bowl I have 1/4 cup of water. Add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to that water and give it a little whisk. This cornstarch slurry will help thicken the sauce up. Also, you don't want to add cornstarch right into your sauce, otherwise it's just going to become clumpy, so that's why you add it in with water and then whisk it. To my pot, I added in a tablespoon of minced garlic, then I added in 1/3 cup of sun-dried tomatoes, 1/2 cup of chicken broth, and then a 14-ounce can of Italian-style diced tomatoes. Those are really flavorful. I also tossed in the cornstarch slurry along with 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Give this a really good stir and bring it up to a simmer. Once it does start simmering, add in 3.5 cups of frozen cheese tortellini. Give this another stir and let it simmer for about 8 minutes or until those tortellini are tender. Now you're going to add in 1 cup of mozzarella cheese, followed by 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, then 2 cups of fresh spinach. If you don't want to add the cheese or the spinach in, you don't have to, but just let that spinach wilt down and then you could serve this up. I know not everybody's a sun-dried tomato fan, so if you don't care for sun-dried tomatoes, you certainly don't have to add them into this dish and it will still turn out super good. Pull out your cookbook because you will find this recipe on page 124. It's in the one pot meals section, one of my favorite sections, but I have 8 different sections in my cookbook ranging from breakfast to sides to dinners and desserts, and I have homemade seasonings in the back and like homemade cream of soups. I have it all in this book, and if you don't have one yet, it's linked down below for you, but this meal was so good. Now we're making this chicken stroganoff, and yes, I said chicken stroganoff, and it is so good. To get started, dice up 8 ounces of white mushrooms and dice up a yellow onion. Over to the pot on my stove, I added in a tablespoon of olive oil along with a pound of cubed chicken breast. You're going to want to season the chicken with a dash of salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. Cook the chicken completely through at this point. Once the chicken's cooked through, remove it to a plate and set the plate to the side to the same pot the chicken was just cooked in. Leave the oil and the drippings in the pot. It's going to give this meal added flavor. Then add in the mushrooms and the onion along with 1/4 cup of chicken broth. Let this cook together for about 4 minutes. Once the cooking time is up, you're going to add in a tablespoon of minced garlic along with a little bit more onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. You're also going to add in some dried basil and oregano. This is going to be so flavorsome. Give this a super duper good stir, and then you're going to add in 3 3/4 cup of chicken broth. After you add your chicken broth right in there, add in 8 ounces of egg noodles. You're going to let this simmer for about 10 minutes or until the pasta is tender. Also, I want to let you know you can make this meatless so easily, or you could add beef to this if you'd prefer to make this with beef. This recipe is so easy. Now we're going to make a cornstarch slurry. Now that the pasta is tender, it's a tablespoon of cornstarch with a tablespoon of water. Add the cornstarch slurry right into the pot. Next, add in the cooked chicken along with a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and 1/3 cup of sour cream. Make sure your heat is off or low at this point. When I started cooking years ago, I didn't realize sour cream separates so easily if it gets too hot. So make sure your heat is low or off. Stir that sour cream in. Once it's well combined, you could serve this gorgeous dinner up. This is not your average boring beef stroganoff. This is such a fun twist on it. It is so delicious, so flavorsome, and you are absolutely